muted the whole time. Interesting. Okay, so the live stream recording might be a little peculiar.
Okay.
I called to order and apparently the volume wasn't going out to it.
Into Dry Mountain, correct?
I'll see how many people are on. Yeah. How many people are on? We've got 3. I can Marshall and I'll keep logged. I'll stay logged in just in case there's a hiccup, and then I can go in and test drive from there. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mayor Nguyen. I'd like to call to order the Newcastle City Council regular meeting for November 1. The time is 7 p.m. This public meeting is being recorded and may be viewed later on the city's YouTube channel. The City Council just returned from executive session that lasted approximately 50 minutes. No actions or final actions were taken during executive session. Will you please rise and join me in the flag salute? All right, City Clerk White, will you please call the roll?
Deputy Mayor Sherlock.
Here.
Councilmember Griffin. Here. Councilmember Villasenor. Here. Councilmember Lacotia.
Here.
Councilmember Charbonneau. Councilmember Clark. Mayor Nguyen.
Here.
7 present, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We do have a quorum of 7 tonight. All right. Are there any objections to the final agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Public comment. I'll go ahead and open the public comment. First, we will hear from those who are with us in person tonight, and then we'll switch to those who are virtual. I would like to note that residents have 3 minutes to speak. We do have a clock, yes? City Clerk White?
It's actually on the podium today,
Okay, thank you.
and that's thanks to Public Works Director Braun.
You know, he's Mr. IT. Thank you, sir. All right, and please state your name and the neighborhood in which you reside. So with that, do we have any people in the audience who would like to speak? And please note, City Council, you do have some comments on the dais in front of you tonight.
And those comments actually are relevant to the property tax levy, if I'm not mistaken.
Jeff Newing, I live in Terry Meadows. These are my comments, and they do not reflect any comments or discussions with any council members, and I'm not acting as any kind of muscle for any council member, and I've not discussed what I'm going to talk about with any council members. Just want to get that on the record to be straight. At the last council meeting, October 18th, Councilmember Griffin stated the city must live within its means in setting the new city budget for next year, but failed to elaborate what that means. The next day, I sent Councilmember Griffin an email asking him what he had in mind to balance the budget. This is the email that I sent him. At the October 18th council meeting, you said the city needs to spend within its means. I take that to balance a $1.1 million deficit. You have a plan to do just that. Can you explain how you will do that? If your plan involves cuts to the city budget, please explain the rationale and what impact those cuts will have on the safety of our residents, and the city will be able to perform at the high standards the residents expect. You've been on the council for 3 years and continue to make these statements, but you never, as far as I can recall, ever come up with a plan to explain what will be cut or reduced to achieve the balanced budget. As a CPA, I would think that you would have the skill set to balance the city budget. Now it's your time to prove to me and the residents of Newcastle you are not all smoke and mirrors. And he did not respond. Get it on the record right now. At the budget workshop, Councilmember Griffin said he and Councilmember Lacotia met and came up with a $500,000 worth of cuts to the city. He was asked by several council members to explain what those cuts were. He failed to do so. If you're going to be a council member and make statements, you should be able to defend your position with factual information instead of saying the city doesn't need it. Factual information goes a long way. At the budget workshop, October 22nd, you wanted to cut $50,000 from the budget, but failed to realize the hazardous waste collection event is grant funded. You also made a statement when discussing the budget, people first. You failed to realize the local businesses pay taxes to the city. No business, no revenue. I'm looking forward to hearing from you on what you want to cut and the rationale for those cuts, rather than the city doesn't need it. How will those cuts affect the city staff? Who will cover those costs? And what negative and positive impacts those cuts will have? As far as I can see, the city needs to start planning for the future and think about new revenue. Isn't it better to start thinking about those new revenue funds now rather than later?
Thank you.
So, Madam Mayor, at this point, I just wanted to reiterate a couple of things. This is City Clerk Paul White. First of all, we are in general public comment at this point. And what I intended to mention, which I'll do now for the benefit of our Zoom participants who are intending to participate remotely tonight, is that if you will raise your hand to make general public comment, we do have 2 public hearings that will happen in a moment. Then we will promote you in, and when we are finished with in-person comments, so that you can make those general comments. If you're having difficulties online with raising your hand or volume, audio problems from our end, you will be able tonight to use the chat feature to speak directly to the host to let us know that that's an issue. And just one other thing, for those participating by telephone, the *6 command will unmute you, and the *9 command will raise your hand. Thank you for that.
Thank you. All right.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Carol Simpson. I live in the Vineyards neighborhood. Even though I've been up here a lot of times, my heart is still racing. It's still stressful to get up and speak to you. I want to speak about economic development, the dire need of our downtown. In today's newspaper, you may have seen that 1 in 3 small businesses in the United States can't make rent. This is critical for our downtown, that we support our businesses in downtown because they support Newcastle in raising retail sales taxes. I've done a thorough study of property values in downtown, and the CBC has increased in taxes since 2009 by only $14,000. That's all of the commercial business core, not Mitchell Materials. In the meantime, the golf club at Newcastle has decreased by $14,000 in what they pay in taxes to the city Newcastle. It's a wash, 0 in increase in property taxes since 2009 from our commercial businesses, not including the Mutual Materials property. This is why it is so critical for you to support businesses, because we rely on them to raise sales taxes. There are 2 empty storefronts on the east side of the street, and of course the old Starbucks store is still empty, although we heard months ago that somebody was in for a permit for a restaurant. Where is that? So the businesses need support. Meanwhile, their values have gone down, have not increased at the same rate. Our residential values have gone up. You've seen in the latest iteration of your budget document that the assessed value of the city has gone up by 32%. That's mostly our houses. The assessed value of downtown has only gone up by 5 or 6%. So guess what? They are going to pay $152,000 less in taxes in 2023 than they were paid in 2022. $152,000. Who makes that up? Single families, the rest of the city. So is it essential that you get with an economic development committee, that you partner with the Chamber of Commerce, you partner with your businesses, and you get to know who's downtown? I'm with the library. We want to pay for events in the library. Those events bring people to the city. When they come to the city, they stop and shop. They spend money on a coffee, groceries, any other essentials. The car repair shop, maybe it's hard for them to get parts. Their revenue may be down. If the businesses can't pay their rent, the values of those buildings go down. If you don't support those buildings, their values go down. They don't pay property taxes. as in the same rate that they did. It's all tied together. Support your local businesses.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience?
There are no hands raised yet, but somebody indicated on chat that they want to, there we go, okay. So I'm promoting one person as their hand raised, Mr. Scheinbaum, and I'm promoting Mr. Scheinbaum to the panelist. Okay, Mr. Scheinbaum, please go ahead and unmute and provide your public comment.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. My name is Chuck Scheinbaum, and I live in Newport Woods neighborhood of Newcastle. I've lived here over 19 years. I'm speaking today, yet again, about the slurry steel coating that has been applied to the roads in my neighborhood and others in Newcastle. And along with other residents and taxpayers, I've written many letters to the city council regarding this tar slurry fiasco. I've expressed my frustration and concern over the selection and implementation of this process, which was supposed to improve the condition of our roads. In short, rather than an improvement, it has made the roads worse. Much has been said and written about the problems and deficiencies of what has been done. For those who have not experienced the misery of having this in front of your house, please don't hesitate to come to an affected neighborhood and see for yourself. At this point, I would like to thank the council members who have replied to my emails. Thank you. Even if you don't agree or sympathize, it's meaningful that you responded. And for those who I have not heard back from, I'd simply like to ask why. It sure would be nice to get an acknowledgement that you received my email. If I may, I would like to read an email that I sent a few days ago. In the email addressed to the council members and members of the city staff, it reads as follows. Here is my argument in favor of immediately stopping the tar slurry seal fiasco and properly paving the adversely affected streets in Newport Woods and other neighborhoods in Newcastle. Particularly now, while looking at our budget, we should be looking at eliminating waste while focusing on residents' priorities. While in the very short term, it costs less to tar slurry seal roads in Newcastle rather than properly pave, eventually we will get to the point where enough residents' homes will have been adversely affected and residents will rise up and put enough pressure on the city to discontinue the flawed process. At that point, a resolution will be approved to switch to sensibly, properly paving the roads again. This may probably occur when the roads of more expensive neighborhoods are slurry sealed, and enough citizens firsthand experience the misery of living on a street which has this, including experiencing their home values decline because of it. Once the city finally comes to its senses,
we need you to wrap up.
Once the city finally comes to its senses and discontinues the process, we will need to go back and correct and redo all the roads which have been sealed. This is necessary, firstly, because it's the right
Mr.
thing to
Scheinbaum,
do.
you need to wrap up, please.
I will. I'm almost done. Please bear with me. Firstly, it's the right thing to do, but secondly, because if it's not, there undoubtedly will be lawsuits against the city when higher priced neighborhoods are given given preferential treatment. In the longer run, this will prove to have wasted millions of dollars. Please make the sensible, cost-saving, and equitable choice to swiftly approve a resolution to end the slurry seal project and return to paving roads in Newcastle. Please make sure to include language which will address swiftly bringing the adversely affected neighborhoods back to having roads on par with other neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no more online public comment, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Director Bronze. I'll go ahead and close the public comment. That's the general comment only. We do, like City Clerk White reminded me, and thank you, sir, we do have public comment coming up for the public hearings. All right, we have no ceremonial presentations. Council comment. Deputy Mayor Sherlock, you want to kick us off?
Sure, I don't have any written comments out, but just wanted to, a lot of us went to the cemetery today and got a lovely tour from the Historical Society, which I had never experienced, and it was very interesting, so I highly recommend it if you haven't done it. And thanks to Representatives Sen and Milan Tai and Lisa Wellman, our senator. They came in and because they were able to get help us get some grants from the state to get a new fence for the cemetery. So it was a fun event, and I just thank everybody who put it together and came out.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Griffin, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Newing. I didn't really have a comment until just now, after hearing the first public opinion. 5 years ago, in this coming December, I attended my first meeting at City Hall. And I listened, you were working on the budget then, and I explained to the folks, I got up and told them my name and where I was from, and told them that this is the first meeting I ever attended. I really hadn't had anything to say that night, but after listening to them working on the budget, I said, it's obvious that the city doesn't know how to put a budget together. And I explained to them the way to put a budget together is you lay your revenue down here, you start matching up your expenses to it, using your essential ones, and when you get through, you've got it all mapped out. The things that don't fit, or the things that are services that most people don't want to pay for, then we don't have to worry about it. But that's the way you put a budget together. I find that the city does a little different job with that, and they budget to a bank account rather than to budget with their revenue. Any place I've ever been, you put a budget together, you had revenue to spend, you had expenses to spend, and they did match up. But the difference was that we were having to make a profit. And I'm told the city doesn't have to make a profit. And I can see why by now. Because we don't take care of our expenses, and we over budget our expenses and under budget our revenue. This has gone on for as long as I've been contacted with the city. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Villasenor, what do you have for us?
Hi, first of all, good evening, everybody. I just wanted to encourage everyone to vote. You should have gotten your ballots in the mail, and hopefully you've taken a look at those. And there's a convenient drop box here in front of City Hall, and you can put it in the mail. But please, I'm encouraging you to participate in the process. I think it's an important thing. I also had a chance to go to the cemetery today with the Historical Society, and I got to hear stories about the people who work in the mines and who built this community, and people have such deep roots in Newcastle. There are people whose grandparents are buried there, and you hear stories about how a local doctor who worked in the mines delivered a mother and then the son down the road, and you hear these amazing stories about Newcastle, and I know Newcastle means a great deal to me, but I know that in this community, Newcastle means so much more than I could even possibly imagine. So to those people, thank you for building this community. I'm honored to sit up here and try to work with my colleagues to tend to this town that they started, and it was a really wonderful experience. And if you get a chance to get a guided tour during Newcastle Days or other times when they're open, I really highly suggest you do. It's quite enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lacotia, what do you have for us?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening. I just wanted to say thank you for the public comments, and thank you to our citizens for writing to us. We've been receiving those emails, so I just want to say I want to acknowledge that. And thank you, Chuck, for making a comment. And we are working through the slurry street. It's just getting complicated, and I hope we can come to a solution soon. So just want to acknowledge that. Regarding the comment made on the budget cuts and how do we do budget and the discussion during the budget retreat, I just want to say that yes, we came up with some ideas, and there were some budget cuts that we sent to the city manager. We emailed him those ideas, and yes, I do know how to make a budget. I do make my personal budget, and I do live within my means. I do not spend more than I earn. So there are ways, and as they rightly say, that where there is a will, there is a way. So if there is a will to balance the budget, then there definitely will be a way to do that. So yes, there are, we, myself and Councilmember Griffin have shared our perspective on the budget via email with the staff. So thank you.
All right. Speaking of deep Newcastle roots, Councilmember Charbonneau, our very own native.
Yeah, since I was 2 years old, believe it or not. Thank you. First, I'd like to start with, I know we talked about at our last council meeting a couple weeks ago, the idea of a community and economic development committee internally. It's not going to be covered tonight during the meeting. I just wanted to give folks a pulse on that, though, and we did have a citizen come comment about that as well, which I appreciate. I've been working with Development Director Hoffman, City Manager Pingle, and our City Clerk Paul White on looking at the language for the committee. So that is in process, and we are looking to move forward with that, and we'll have another update for you all hopefully soon, but that is in process. It has not been forgotten or anything like that since the last meeting. I would echo the sentiment of please vote. You have about 1 week and 1 hour, almost to the minute, if you're putting it in a Dropbox. You have less time than that if you'd like to mail it yourself, because it needs to be postmarked by the appropriate time. But please vote in everything. There are levies, there are ballot measures, there are everything up and down. Do not just vote in one race. Make sure you're voting up and down. And then I was also privileged to go to the cemetery this morning with our delegation. I would just add as well, I think, in the past, our city has not really lobbied the legislature or asked the legislature for money, and we engaged with a lobbyist this past year. We really put that effort forward and worked to engage with those folks, and it did yield a lot of dividends for us. The fence for the cemetery, the Lakeborn fishing dock, and some other items as well. So I think it's really great to be putting ourselves out there and start to build this culture and work on this idea of you do not get anything you don't ask for. So going forward and putting that effort in and getting our sort of piece of pie from the state and having our voice heard. And I think that's really great and something worth stopping and acknowledging.
Councilmember Clark, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Newing. Just briefly, just a reminder of Veterans Day coming up next week. Before our next meeting, we'll have Veterans Day, Friday the 11th. Please join us out here, me anyway. There'll be some people I know for sure, but we'll have a little ceremony at on the 11th at 9 o'clock. So there's a couple more flyers on the table there. There's some flyers around town, so please come along and join us. 30 minutes or so, we'll have a little tribute. Our first one in Newcastle in a very long time, as far as I know, a couple decades maybe. There's also the Auburn Veterans Day Parade this Saturday. If you've never had a chance to look at it, it's 3 hours. There's nearly 180 participants at this point, as far as I know. So if you get a chance to go down there, it's very interesting and very enjoyable. So thank you.
All right, thank you. I will, moving on to reports. My report is I was also able to attend the them, kind of get together with our state legislators. And again, I want to thank them for, getting us some funding for some very big projects here in our city. I also want to thank King County Sheriff's Office and NPD for sponsoring Breast Cancer Awareness Month. My proud pink badge, I love it. Thank you guys for acknowledging donations with this lovely pink badge. And with that, I will turn it over to our Newcastle Cape Crusaders. We have two of them tonight. We have Chief Hauk, welcome Chief, and Deputy Treadway. So welcome Deputy Treadway. Microphone, sir.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
There was a light on. I thought it was on. Thank you, Paul, or I guess is it Jeff? What'd you call him? The technology guru?
We don't pay you to manage technology.
Can we say computer nerd anymore, or is that not?
If you're a
Okay.
self-proclaimed.
No, I'm kryptonite to any computer. Okay, so this is third quarter stats. Just a note for the next one. They're essentially live now, so we won't have to wait a month, 2 months to do these. We could do them almost the day of next time. So something to look forward to. Third quarter stats. I think we've gone through these enough times. I don't need to explain where all of this information comes from. You're all familiar with crimes reported in 3 categories: crimes against persons, crimes against property, and crimes against society. So we'll move into the meat and potatoes here. So crimes against comparison over the last 3 years. You can see that unfortunately we're ahead of everything we were last year. I don't want to make excuses on anything, so I'm not going to, but what I will tell you is that, for example, the property crimes, it's at 311 here. Through the second quarter, it was at 247. So that was 123-ish each quarter. This last quarter, it went up by 74. So while it is up, it's trending anyway in the right direction. Crimes against persons was at 30 last quarter. It's at 39. So instead of 15, it was 9. So again, high, but trending in the right direction. Next. So third quarter specific crime comparisons: assaults, vehicle thefts, and burglaries. These are the ones that people are most concerned about and ask about the most. Again, ahead of last year, unfortunately, but again, we're going in the right direction in the third quarter. So assaults at the end of the second quarter was at 13 to 21, so it went up by 8, which is, or no, excuse me, it was. No, that's in the wrong direction, actually. My bad. So assaults are kind of a tough thing for us to, these are not assaults like random assaults where you're walking down the street and getting mugged or anything like that. These are like domestic violence, those sorts of things, which is real tough for us to sort of stop before they happen. We offer services and stuff like that to domestic violence victims, but it's a tough thing for us to really get a hold of and get in front of. Vehicle thefts, I don't know why in 2020, well, I guess in 2020 a lot of people were home, so there wasn't a chance to steal your car all that much. But as with the other things, vehicle thefts end of last quarter is at 27, so it went up 9. So again, it was, if you take the average, it was 13.5 the first 2 quarters and went to 9. So burglaries, way higher than the last few years, and I don't know what to tell you. These are they're home burglaries, they're business burglaries, a lot of smash and grab, like breaking out the front window and going in a business in downtown. At the end of last quarter, they were at 29, and they went up to 37. So it's up 8 over the previous 2 quarters, which is again in the right direction, but still way higher than I would like it to be. We have we have an additional officer on graveyard now, so occasionally there's there's 2 most of the time, 4 days a week typically if everybody's around. But these are actually, some of them are happening during the day too as well. So those are mostly the home burglaries where people are at work now, so people are breaking into their house while they're gone. We still have the vacation house checks that we do. Unfortunately, one of those people was just recently broken into while they were gone in Hawaii. The good news about that, if there is good news, is that we were able to contact them and let them know and get a hold of a brother to come and secure the house. So unfortunately it happened while they were gone, but it was good that we had, some contact information. So larcenies through the 3rd quarter, shoplift, almost none, which is great still. Non-specific categories, that's kind of like, those are porch pirates and mail thefts, and it's just stuff that's not in the other categories as it sounds. Auto parts, that's catalytic converters and that sort of stuff. First part of the year, or first two quarters, it was at 34, and it went up to 41, so it was only up 7. As you know, we've tried everything from having different officers out different times at night, extra patrols, stuff like that, and then we also did that the VIN etching event to try and help folks out and deter that sort of stuff. Taken from auto, those are purses and phones and wallets, and unfortunately people still leave their guns in their cars unlocked, unsecured. End of last quarter, they were at 53, and they only went up 8. So there was only 8 of them in the last quarter, which is wonderful. I've seen a few reports already this quarter. I think we're already over 8, but we'll take wins when we can get them. What happens to these cases? Our very vigilant detective and all the patrol officers that do their hard work out there. It's resulted in 46 cases that we've sent to the King County Prosecutor's Office and our municipal court. I don't have any statistics on whether or not they charged folks or waved at them while we were still doing our paperwork. Accidents and tickets through, it says the 2nd quarter on my sheet, but I gave you the right one. But I've got the right information. I think I caught that as I was going through. So you can see we're well ahead of where we were last year in tickets. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to bring down accidents. You can see we got more accidents than we had, twice as many as we had in 2020, but nobody was driving. So 2021, we've got a few more accidents, but way more tickets, and that is, thanks in large part to, a vast majority of these belong to MPO Treadway here. And I very much appreciate the work he does. I get, he actually had somebody, I don't get these very often, but usually people complain when they get tickets, and understandably they're frustrated, but I actually had somebody who got a ticket and called and told me how great he was. And she got a ticket. And I thought it was like a prank call, but it wasn't. So I think we're going to be well over 1,000 tickets at the end of the year. So I think in the last, if I read this all right and wrote it down right, I think in the last quarter there was a combined 490. We were behind last quarter, and we're well ahead. It's like 493 tickets in the last quarter. So a lot of hard work by Deputy or MPO Treadway. I think I wrote a couple of tickets when I'm able to get out of my office, but thank you very much to him. Dispatch calls to service are up a bit, 100 or so over the last year. And highlights for the third quarter. Hazelwood Elementary Welcome Back to School Day. We went out to that, had a good time there. Myself and MPO Treadway are CRAZE instructors. Cops like acronyms, and CRAZE is Civilian Response to Active Shooter Events. Right? Okay. So what that is obviously that's a huge concern for a lot of places. It's not just schools, it's businesses, it's movie theaters, it's restaurants, it's all that kind of fun stuff. MPO Treadway and I went to a train the trainer sort of class, and then actually put on to get sort of blessed and certified to teach it more. We gave two classes to city staff here, the folks that work in this building, and then the Public Works Department folks that are over in the annex. Just last week. So we also had 2 officers go to active shooter training outdoor, like a 3-day class where they're running around with paintball guns and actually not the teaching civilians what to do, but the teaching the police what to do when they get there. So we had the VIN etching event at Lake Boren, more birthday deliveries. The arrests are up over the past semester. We've already almost surpassed the total number of tickets we had all of last year. The crimes, while they were up, seem to be trending in the right direction. And Matt and one of our other officers wrote enough school zone tickets to get another LiDAR for us here. So that's essentially free money for writing school zone tickets. We turn them in and get grant money, and then turn around and write more tickets with the LiDAR we get. So, any questions?
Any questions for Chief Houck? Councilmember Clark, go ahead, please.
Thanks. Thank you, Chief. Just 2 quick questions. I was surprised to see shoplifting on there. You'll have to help me out with this. Isn't the laws in this area pretty liberal about how much money you can walk out the door with? You have to educate me on, what is the current shoplifting law or violation? And the second question I had for you was, now that you've trained on this active shooter, are you going to go? Is it your plan to go to local businesses? What's the end result? Are you going to, give education to most of the businesses?
So we're going to MPO Treadway and I are going to start talking to some businesses. We don't want to put it out to the masses, and because we're assuming a lot of people would like this. So yes, that is the plan. That's the reason we got trained in doing this. MPO Treadway is currently talking to the school district that is around here that does that. So eventually, yes, that is why we did that. And a thought behind that was to go around to local businesses here. It's going to be kind of tough to do that, like say Safeway or something like that, because you need everybody in a spot for probably a minimum of 45 minutes to an hour. But yeah, that's the plan. And as soon as we can get an idea and get settled and figure out, because literally it was last week we got blessed to sign off on doing it. So as far as the shoplifting thing, the law is, so there's the RCW, and then there's what King County will file on. Walking out of the store with a 8-cent paper bag can technically land you in jail. That's stealing. Stores aren't necessarily calling every time somebody steals, they aren't making reports when somebody called a beer run or something. If somebody goes to AM/PM and grabs beers and runs out the door, they're not necessarily calling. But when they do, and we take reports or we go over there, we can arrest them for, candy bars aren't 50 cents anymore, but whatever the cheapest item you can find in the store is, we could take that person to jail. When it becomes a felony, technically by the RCW, I think it's over $250, but there's not a snowball's chance in a really warm place that the King County Prosecutor's Office is going to file on that. So we would stick that with our Muni Court prosecutor, and she would file on an 8-cent plastic bag if we got the call and sent them to it. So she's, pardon the expression, tough on crime. I mean, she doesn't put up with nonsense. So, yep.
Councilmember Charbonneau.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Chief Haug. So you shared, looking at the number of assaults, we saw it sort of steadily climbing, and you shared that, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you said most of those cases were domestic violence cases, which is, not great to hear, of course. I'm curious, I know that, I'm not an expert on this, but I know that a lot of times it can take victims of domestic violence, perhaps years to come forward, a lot of time to come forward. It can be very tough situations. So I'm just curious, is there anything, it's a two-part question, is there anything in your expertise to suggest that we're maybe seeing a higher number of reporting now of those cases, whereas they could have been happening prior? And then when these cases are brought to you, what outreach or services, if any, is the victim connected to?
So the first part of your question is about delayed reporting. I don't know. There are, I think, off the top of my head, I think about, what was the, 4 is the number that's sticking in my head, and I don't know how many that total would be, assaults, in this last quarter. There's a few couples that live in this city that constantly do not get along, and we end up taking reports and taking assault reports. They get issued no contact orders, which they then go and get dropped, and then it all happens again. So we do offer them all sorts of, we have a handbook, basically a booklet, a little tiny booklet that gives them numbers to mental health resources, to crisis counseling, to like women's shelters, that sort of thing. And then the city has a contract with a domestic violence advocate that will check in every time we refer a case for an assault. That domestic violence advocate gets a copy of the report and contacts the victim and helps walk them through getting court orders, getting, whatever services they need, getting housing if they need, temporary housing to get away from the assailant or whatever. But yeah, that's what we have. We can't make them leave, and it's very frustrating and sad that we see the same people being abused by the same person. On a positive note for laws in the state of Washington, they made it a felony for a 4th violation, a 4th domestic assault violation. Even if it was a misdemeanor level assault, if you're convicted a 4th time, or excuse me, arrested a 4th time after 3 convictions, it gets filed as a felony. So that's a win. When I don't necessarily agree with a bunch of other ordinances and laws that were passed.
Thank you. I really appreciate the context and hearing more about that.
All right, any other questions? Deputy Mayor Sherlock.
Thanks, Chief. I know we were down quite a few officers earlier in the year. When did we get back to where full?
So we have
staff?
Including me, we have 10, which I shouldn't really count because I unfortunately spend a lot of time behind my desk. We got another officer that I placed on graveyard. Do you know when Malik came? A month ago? A couple months ago, sometime in this third quarter. I want to say August somewhere in August. And then I instantly put them on graveyards.
Okay. I was just wondering if there's any correlation to the downward trend and having all the officers that, you know.
It's possible. I don't think it hurts to have more police out there driving around. But I don't want that officer's head to get too big, so.
Okay.
I won't give them all the credit.
Thank you.
All right, I see no other questions, so I want to commend both of you for getting that active shooter training certificate. That's great. It's I've taken that training a couple times. It's very valuable, and it's interesting how it evolves from one time to the next. So that's excellent.
I know the city manager and the city staff folks have already gone through it, but if council would like to go through it, we'd be happy to do that. And I don't want to ruin a surprise, but one of the slides is at a school board meeting. Yeah. It's like a junior city council, and so. But if that's something that
It's real.
you'd like us to do, we'd be happy to offer that to you. So let me know.
And maybe
you know where to find me.
Yeah, we do. Maybe a way to get the businesses involved would be through the chamber, and
Yeah, that's a
maybe
good
they
idea.
could set up something for you.
Yeah, and it's true. I guess you're right. If it doesn't have to be one business at a time,
Yeah.
sort of thinking of it, we could get
Global.
people from different businesses or something. So yeah, we'll look into that. And like I said, if it's something you'd like me to, or like us, I follow. I'm the second speaker. He really handles most of it.
He's the ticket writer. We need to keep him.
No. So yeah, let us know, and we could set something up for the council.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe out there. All right, moving on. Council committees, Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mayor Newing. We did have Finance Committee last week. Our point of business was the renewal of the contract for our legislative consultant, which passed 3-0. And the next Finance Committee meeting is on an as-needed basis if we need to approve anything, but we are not planning to meet otherwise in November.
All right, thank you. Salary and Benefits Committee actually meets tomorrow. Regional committees, any regional reports? Councilmember Charbonneau, go ahead.
Thank you. I attended the Regional Transit Committee, and I was, by sheer luck, promoted to a voting member by other people not attending. So the big thing to share there was that I was a yes vote in a unanimous effort from effective January 1, 2023 to January 1, 2024, the Orca Lift program under King County Metro, which is for folks that are low income. Rates for pretty much every form of public transit will be going down for those folks from $1.50 to $1. This was sort of crafted by King County and King County Metro, so you can expect that starting next year, and that is what the vote we took there.
All right, any other regionals? Okay, moving on. City Manager Pingle, what do you have for us?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Outside of what's in the City Manager's report, not too much. I just wanted to reiterate what Councilmember Charbonneau had to say. We've been working on just, it's not a major change, I wouldn't say, to the description of the Economic and Community Development Committee, but just kind of focusing it and making sure we provide proper bumpers without pigeonholing it, and so that's kind of the challenge. But we will have a draft to put in front of the council on Friday in my update to the council, and we do think we could move forward trying to seat that if the mayor is so willing at the November 15th meeting. So we'll move forward to try to make that happen.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any objections to approval of tonight's unanimous consent agenda as presented? Seeing none, show the consent agenda approved as presented. Public hearings. Tonight we have 2 public hearings. The first item is item number 9.1, public hearing and adoption of ordinance 2022-648, the 2023 revenue sources and tax levy increase. First, I'd like to turn it over to Director Palmer. Council will have an opportunity to ask questions only. Just so you know, there's not in-depth discussion. And then we'll take public testimony. Director Palmer, welcome.
Thank you. As required by state law, we have a public hearing on revenue sources and predominantly property tax, and set the ad valorem property tax levy. There's an ordinance that goes with this approval. So what I'd like to do is kind of give a summary of what the property tax entails. There's 4 pieces to it, and one is the 1% that we're statutorily limited to. We can ask for that. The other we banked last year, which is last year's banked amount of 1%. You can ask for that. The additional new construction is based upon the last year levy rate, which is $1.33, which is this year's rate, and you apply that, and it came up to 84,000. We just got that from King County. And we also got from King County the re-levy amount, which was $11,000. Just got all of that information just in the past 2 weeks. And they've been giving me updates, and it was unchanged in the last 2 updates, which is good news. What was surprising in the worksheets that's included in your agenda bill was the increase in assessed valuation. And that's also in the packet. But there's a misconception about what that means and how it relates to a homeowner, okay? And I want to kind of dive into that a moment, because when your assessed valuation goes up 32, the cities went up 32.32%, okay? And there's a misconception that property taxes also go up 32%, and that's not correct. It's a function of the amount of money that we ask for, which is 1%, plus the banked, and the new construction is all calculated as part of the levy rate, and it's divided into that assessed valuation. What happens when you're limited to 1% and assessed valuations go up so high, the levy rate actually falls. And it went from $1.33 to $1.04. In the long run, that hurts the city, especially with regards to the calculation of new construction. So to the homeowner, it doesn't mean that your levy amount, the amount that you are going to be assessed, also goes up 34%. That is not the case. Because the levy rate falls, that means that your amount of taxation will go up by the rate times your value. So in the case, I know Carol Simpson had sent out an email to some council members, and I had actually followed up with her about that to just verify, make sure that her records. And so I don't like mentioning names, so I'm not, but there's 2 council members whose rates went up, assessed valuations went up significantly, but the overall rate effect was $5 a month, which was about $60. And that was actually fairly close to being accurate. And so I just want to make that a point because there's a misconception about that. The other part that I want to mention is the levy rate and how it impacts the city in a negative way going forward. If you look in so we're electronic now, and the public can see our transparency of the budget. And what I did was I opened up a number of extra years at the request of a council member, and the public can see that too. They can see the historical values, and they can see the current stuff. In the property tax section, we used to have about $1.80 a few years back. And the $1.80, when it's calculated based on $1.04, which is what it's going to be next year, is a significant drop in new construction that we would get. Now, the reason that the state legislature came up with property taxes and the assessed value, the new construction amount, is as you build something, you should also help pay for public services, okay? And those public services are valued at what your levy rate is. So it becomes fair to the rest of the citizens that the new construction is also help paying for those public services. That's the way that works, okay? So in the future, we have a negative draw as the rates drop. And they've been dropping, as I said, from $1.80 all the way down to next year $1.04. So with that, this ordinance is written in such a way that we're asking for about 2%. And the reason we're asking for that is because just alone, public safety by itself is $674,000 in increases, whereas each of the 1% is around a little over 100,000. So anyway, it helps pay for public services. With that, I'll turn it over to public comment.
Actually, we're going to take council questions, so if we can just put the public comment on hold for a little bit. Are there any questions for Director Palmer? Do you have one? Deputy Mayor Sherlock? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. If we were not to take the 1% increase and the banked, how would that affect the levy rate?
I unfortunately did not do that calculation.
And I'm sorry,
So,
I just thought of that question, so I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
So the rate would go down, not materially, because you're talking about $100,000 of over a $6 million property tax levy. So it's not materially different, but it would be different.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll go ahead and open it up for, open up the public hearing. It appears we have 3 people in our audience who have signed up to speak. I'll go ahead and call in order. Mr. Stephen Gula.
Thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. I do appreciate that.
Pure luck.
And, well, good evening, Mayor Newing and City Council members. It's an honor to meet all of you. First time experience for me. And my name is Stephen Gula. I live in the neighborhood called the Reserve at Newcastle on the golf course. I have loved it there. I've lived there for 16 years, since 2006, soon to be 17 years. And a little bit about myself. I retired at 28 years old. I was the largest distributor of aviation fuel in North America, supplying airlines, commuters, fixed base operations, military operations. And it was just quite an experience. It happened very quickly, and bam, it just happened. I was retired. And one of the lessons I learned as an entrepreneur was maintaining a balanced budget. And this is dear to my heart. And I'd like to explain to you why. I was successful because of my management skills and someone who has self-control and accountability for spending. And I have learned a couple of things over the years, and that is discipline and structure. Discipline and structure are critical. It definitely provides an opportunity to be successful in life and in business. And I am living the American dream, personally, because I have this understanding. And as a successful entrepreneur and a resident in Newcastle, I would like to recommend that you reconsider your proposed 2023 budget deficit of approximately $923,000. Now, the debt is a burden on our community and not necessary to maintain a healthy and prosperous city. I have a few suggestions. With the current economy, including higher interest rates, inflation, cost of goods and services, having discipline right now and sticking to a firm budget has become even more important. I understand to increase revenue, the city finance director suggests utility taxes, and the citizens were against this action. With approximately 60% of our community voting against the utility tax. Successful businesses in our community, including Amazon, Starbucks, Costco, listen to their customers. This is why they're successful. I would urge you to listen to the citizens living in the city of Newcastle. Their voices are important. From the information that I have had an opportunity to review, the city of Newcastle has sufficient funds to pay for essential police and fire services, including maintaining our streets, roads, and sidewalks. Please reevaluate the proposed $120,000 expenditure for communication manager and event manager. This position should be combined at a cost savings opportunity to the city. Almost done. Please pay raises for the 29 staff employees for the city of Newcastle should not be adjusted or considered for 2023 with the current budget deficit proposal. By the way, this action is common protocol in the private sector. And I would like to say the city should focus on mandatory expenditures. That's really what's important. We are trusting you to make the correct decisions because you all have a fiduciary relationship and responsibility to the citizens in Newcastle. In closing, it is important to review your options wisely because the truth of the matter is that the city is healthy. I've looked at this. Does not require or need the burden of a budget deficit, especially with the current economic environment that we're all in.
Okay, we need you to wrap up, please.
I have completed my comments, but I would like to, if, with all due respect, if you'd be willing to give me 30 seconds, I would like to tell you that I have worked, I'm currently working with the largest nonprofit in the state of Washington, and there are some tremendous opportunities for the city of Newcastle that I would be willing to invest my time to help any of the council members implement if you are interested. There's supplemental revenue options, and they would help build up a tremendous cash flow for the city. And I can just give you a 10-second overview if I have
We need you to wrap
permission.
up, sir.
Okay. There are millions of dollars in the state of Washington that go unredeemed with gift cards. And we are currently raising $1 million for a nonprofit entity in the state. There are also opportunities with merchant cards for the merchants where they can offer discounts on their goods and service, and it drives sales for the merchants and increases revenues and taxes.
Please wrap up.
And then lastly, emergency services. I've seen this in other communities where fire or police, they go to sit in front of a supermarket once a month or semi-monthly, and they have public relation events with the community, and they have fundraisers. This will also bring in several thousands of dollars. These are all great ideas. I have many more. I am willing to provide my phone number to any one of you to assist in this effort. Thank you so much. I trust that you know what you're doing.
Thank you,
I have
sir.
confidence in what you're doing.
Mr. Len
And thank you so
Trotman.
much.
Thanks, Steve. Hi, Len Troutman. I live in, what is it? It's Hazelwood, says on my mortgage deed. I hadn't planned on talking to you. You've all got my letter. You know what I'm concerned about. An acquaintance of mine popped in early. He didn't have time to speak, and he asked me to read his comments, which I think you have a copy of. He writes microscopically small, so if you'll bear with me, I'm going to just read these to you as I see them. It's dated November 1st, 2022, regarding public hearings regarding real estate taxes and budget for 2023, City of Newcastle, Washington. Dear City Council and staff, thank you for the opportunity to submit testimony today about the very serious matters that affect all the households in the City of Newcastle. My name is Brad Corner, and I've been a resident in this city for the last 16 years. Number one, the City Council of Newcastle should vote no to any real estate taxes this year. Why? The reevaluation done on most properties in Newcastle by the county assessor is probably the greatest increase in value in only 1 year in decades. This increase alone will be reflected on the bills sent out in mid-February of 2023. Why should the city pile on more on top of this increase? In light of the negative economic changes since the assessor's valuation date of 1/31/22, this should be self-evident to every council member that the taxpayer in Newcastle needs relief now. Number two, the City Council of Newcastle should vote no to the staff-produced, unrealistic, inflated, self-serving deficit budget proposal for 2023. After voting no tonight to the staff-proposed budget, please vote yes to redirecting the staff to provide an alternative balanced budget that does not include the increased real estate taxes on any other fee or tax increases for 2023. The form should be clear, concise, and include footnotes of changes relative to the last 5 years of actual received revenue and actual spending, not relative to prior inflated budgets that have been wildly variant to actual numbers. In this way, the current council can gain the trust of the citizens that they are looking out for all the households that pay the taxes rather than acting as a rubber stamp to the staff-produced wish list each year. Why has the council lost the trust of the citizens? For the sake of time, let's describe the citizens' experience with the council at the town hall earlier this year. The city council had invitations sent out to the citizens that represented a report that would be done with the one-time money received from the federal government, directly or through the state government. When we got to the meeting, instead of we are asked to participate in a focus group voting on or a reflection of prepared spending options. When the answers included priorities for spending and or saving the money, it caused some of the council members to either not answer questions of the citizens.
And I need you to wrap up, Mr. Troutman.
Yes, ma'am.
We do have those written comments
You
in
have a
front.
copy
We do, sir.
of this? And,
Yes, we do.
All right, fine. And please take note of the copy of my comments regarding the slurry seal situation. I'd still
Yes.
like you to make some sort of motion to get that get taken care of, like Chuck Feingold said. It's a mess. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Our next speaker signed up is Carol Simpson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Carol Simpson from Vineyards again. You've received numerous emails from me about the budget and the levy, and this is a hearing about the levy. And so I'm going to speak to that and stay on that topic. You've seen numerous spreadsheets from me, crunching numbers, figuring out what your levy rates will be, all this kind of stuff. Just love it. So, after doing all that, sending you all that, and I will reiterate, this is an unusual year. One of the previous speakers said, we've never seen an assessed value increase this high in our city. And I just totaled them up from 2009, and there hasn't been a 32% assessed value increase since 2009. Minus 18.67, 0.54, 6.025, 0.25, 7.71. That's when we came out of the recession. 17.28, that's when some of the big buildings start to get built. 10.06, 7.88, 21.31, more big buildings. 10.73, 1.24, I think some of our values went down that year. 5.7, last year was 15.96, this year is 32.32. What makes this year special? Most of that increase fell on residential properties because the retail sector is struggling, their values didn't increase. The value of all the downtown businesses, including the commons, only went up 7.08%. Guess what? Like I said before, their taxes are going down $152,000. Where does that $152,000 come from? The rest of us, rest of the property taxpayers in Newcastle. Yes, we need more money. Yes, I want to pay for all those services. I'm not going to stand here and suggest eliminating any. It's up to you. You've said you know how to balance the budget. Show us. So, what am I going to recommend? I was undecided until 6:30 this evening, until I thought, well, what's going to happen next year? Did some number crunching for next year. Figured out a levy rate for next year. What if you take everything next year? What if our house values go down a little bit because everybody's going to be so mad that assessor wants to get reelected? And our school districts are really pumping up their levies. We're going to be upset. They're going to bring them down a little bit. Let's hope. Maybe minus 5%. Maybe our property values go down 5%. I'm not going to hope that anything else is going to go down much. Maybe it's going to go up 5%. Maybe the other buildings. So I figured that would give us a new levy, a new assessed value, and I calculated the levy rate, taking next year's 1%, the 2023 1%, and the 2022 1%. That comes up to a levy rate of 1.01223. What does that do to your property taxes? It reduces it $72. Your 7 people here, $72 on average. If you take 0 this year, the average is your property taxes will go up $50. If you take 0, nothing this year, it's still going up. It's up to you to explain it to your constituents.
Thank you. All right, Director Bronze, our virtual, okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Okay, and with that, council members, any motions, any comments? Turn it over to you guys. Seeing none. The council member Villasenor, was that a hand raise?
Yes.
Okay.
I move adoption of ordinance 2022-648, setting the ad valorem property tax levy for the 2023 fiscal year as presented.
Second.
Sorry, I have an amendment to the motion, please.
All right, I need to put the motion on the floor to amend. So with that, we have a motion on the floor made by Councilmember Villasenor, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sherlock. And that motion is to adopt ordinance 2022-648, setting the ad valorem property tax levy for the 2023 fiscal year as presented. And then there was an amendment, so we'll go ahead and take that amendment. Councilmember Clark, if you have that amendment, please pass it down.
My writing's a little sloppy, excuse me. Thank you, Mayor Newing. I move that proposed ordinance 2022-648 be amended to remove items 1, 2, and 4 under the fiscal impact, removal of the 2% increase and the re-levy.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Clark, seconded by Councilmember Lacotia to remove items 1, 2, and 4 under fiscal impact, removal of 2% increase and the re-levy. Councilmember Clark, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Thank you, Mayor Newing. So this is, I appreciate the public comment, and there was already a motion or a mention of thank you, Carol, for sending all your notes. I appreciate that very much. So the property tax, right, first of all, the property tax as listed in the motion says this, if we don't, we need this for public safety. And I take exception to that because this money will go into the general fund to be used for anything, right? We use the term public safety to try to create some emotion, and I understand that, but let's be realistic. This is going into the general fund to be used possibly for public safety, but possibly for a lot of other things too. So, we have heard, not just in the number of emails we receive as a council, but, a lot of people, tell me separate from that, why are you raising our taxes? Now, somebody will argue, well, it's only a few dollars, right? And we've heard that before. It's only a few dollars, right? But you're telling the people that, we're gonna take, we have money in our ARPA funds that we set aside for fiscal sustainability. And this is a year when every person in the community is being hit by super high costs for gas, for food, and for all kinds of other day-to-day items. And it's not so much the dollars, it's the principle. It's for us saying that you are not as important to us as other things in the community. For example, we're gonna talk here shortly about giving money to businesses, $650,000 essentially, right? So we're asking the people, as mentioned by a public commenter, to pay taxes, which then would cover for some of the lost revenue from the city taxes, from the business taxes, and then we're going to give the businesses more money on top of that. I just don't agree with that. I think that we need to put the people first. We need to say to the people, we are listening to you. We know you're struggling. You are our first priority, and we're going to give you some relief this year. And we have the means to cover that revenue gap that has taken place by this $100,000 for this 2%. So it's the right thing to do at the right time. And that's my thoughts.
Councilmember Lacote.
Point of order,
Oh,
Madam
sorry.
Mayor. I apologize for having to do this, but as I understand it from following the text, the council member is attempting to amend the agenda bill, not the ordinance. It's unclear to the clerk what is being amended or was proposed to be amended at this point. The agenda bill is a description of what the ordinance does. So perhaps a clarification would be in order, but one or the other as you see appropriate.
Okay, so go ahead, Scott.
Also, I think the re-levy is something that King County does, period. I don't think we can stop that.
That is correct. The King County provides that information. So, for example, if a property tax owner contests their levy because of the assessed valuation or whatever, and they win, what happens is reapportioned in the following year to all the others, and that's what the re-levy amount is for.
So I'm a little confused. The ordinance needs to be amended. Is that, or that would be the amendment to the ordinance?
The point of order is that the amendment is directed at the agenda bill, not the ordinance. Now, once you've ruled on that, you're welcome to entertain the same amendment in intent to the ordinance, but we need to be sure of what content is being asked to be changed.
Okay, so just a question on that. Can I ask for clarification? I see Curtis nodding yes. Okay. Or do I need to disregard this amendment and?
I can make a change to that.
I'm waiting for.
Before we go down the road of trying to change amendments that are now in the possession of the body, because they've been seconded.
Okay.
Okay. The issue at hand, now I'm speaking as the clerk, so I'm providing advice to you. Okay.
Okay.
As odd as that seems, okay. By directing the amendment to a portion of the fiscal impact statement that summarizes what the ordinance is supposed to be doing, okay, the amendment essentially asks the council to change a staff report. Okay. What if you wish to ask for clarification, the clarification is, what is the amendment supposed to do? Now, the council member has spoken to the intent of the amendment already. What the clerk and council and the public need to know is, what in the ordinance does this change? And we've also heard to the issue of the re-levy as to whether or not that is even in our purview.
Okay. All right, so Councilmember Clark, we're asking for clarification as to what in the ordinance is your desire to amend?
Thank you, and I apologize for any confusion. Thank you, City Clerk, for correcting me. And so let me rephrase. I would like to remove from the ordinance 2022-648 the $112,025, which constitutes the 1% banked and the 1% for this year.
Second.
And I will leave the re-levy alone.
So the amendment, as clarified, pertains to ordinance 2022-648, and that is to remove the $112,025 increase and leave the re-levy as stated in the ordinance. Okay. Councilor.
So, and I heard a second to that.
Yes.
That is essentially what we're dealing with now is a new motion, and you have not resolved what's going on with the previous amendment.
Okay, that
So
was my
since this is the place where we are, I would recommend that you simply rule the first amendment attempt to be out of order based on the fact that it was not written to the ordinance.
Okay.
And then we will simply accept what has already occurred, which is the motion and second for the amendment in a different form.
And that was the guidance I was looking for initially.
Very good. Well, yes. So, that just needs for you as the chair to declare that the point of order was well taken, that the amendment originally offered is not in order, but that we currently have a motion and a second for another amendment that does what was just said.
Okay. The point of order is well taken. I will remove the First Amendment from the floor. And the clarified or restated amendment is to remove from the 2022-648 ordinance the $112.25 increase over last year's levy and leave the re-levy alone. And that amendment was made by Councilmember Clark, seconded by Councilmember Lacotia. Councilmember Clark.
Madam Mayor, if I may, just for all of us who are following along in the text of the ordinance, we are looking now at Section 1, 2023 Property Tax Levy. You see there is a number, $6,177,815. That amount will necessarily change because of this amendment. You also see there an amount, $112,025, that is being proposed to be removed. So that and the related language is what we are also talking about.
Okay, Councilmember Clark has spoken to his previous amendment. Do you have anything to add? I just want to allow you to do that.
Just another apology for the confusion.
No apology needed, thank you. Councilmember Lacotia?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So what this amendment is also doing, we keep hearing that we don't support the businesses. We do support the businesses. And through this amendment, we are helping the businesses to not pay taxes because, we are just removing the burden of property taxes from them for the businesses as well as for the citizens. So that is what this amendment is doing. Thank you.
Okay, the amendment, anyone else? The amendment on the floor is to revise ordinance 2022-648, primarily section 1, the 2023 levy of $112.25 $112,025 for last year's levy and remove the re-levy option, or leave the re-levy option as is. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion fails 3-4 with council members Lakotia, Clark, and Griffin voting in the affirmative. All right, main motion on the floor is to, let me bring that back up here real quick. Doggone it. Clicked on the wrong one. Okay. Adopt ordinance 2022-648, setting the ad valorem property tax levy for the 2023 fiscal year as presented. Councilmember Villasenor, you made the motion. Deputy Mayor Sherlock seconded it. Councilmember Villasenor, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, please, thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I take offense to the people that we don't feel that people are important. It's the reason I come here tonight and every night that we have meetings, because I'm here because the people of this community are very important to me. So that being said, and without getting into a deep rehash of our revenue model, property tax is our largest and most reliably forecasted revenue source. It is, the state allows us to grow that property tax by 1% per year. And it is based on a levy rate, not the increase of the percentage increase of your valuation. Your property tax isn't going up 32%. So I've seen some email that shows concern about that. The levy rate actually is going down. So that offsets the increased valuations. So that being said, our property tax handles, for the most part, our general budget. With the increases in police and fire, those two expenditures alone make up 92.5% of our property tax revenue, leaving us 7.5% of that to move into other things. So yes, we are going to spend other things with the property tax. It's not just fire and police, but it nearly is just fire and police. So that is concerning to me. This increase of 2%, which again, for the average home in Newcastle, is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 a month. If you're over the average home price, you're going to pay a little more. And while I don't discount that, because I understand that we all feel the pressure of increased costs with regard to fuel and food and all these other types of things. And we also compound that with, in some cases, our asset devaluation in a certain way. Even though we have seen, our assessed valuations go up, a lot of people have seen their property values go up and down, just depending upon the house that's built on that land. So, the revenue that we're proposing tonight, the increase in the property tax, lags inflation by a wide margin. It also lags public safety costs by a wide margin. So it doesn't fix the problems that we currently have, but it is something that our city needs to continue to track, because we're not the federal government. I mean, we can't print money. The things that I feel as a homeowner with regards to my expenses, the city also feels. The city also is dealing with increased energy costs and increased supply costs, increased costs for services. It's something we're all in this together, and I'm still sort of smarting over the fact that being accused that the people are important, but the people and the city and the businesses we're all in the same boat, and we need to move through this time together, and hopefully the macroeconomics at some point get better for all of us. But at this time, we need to take care of the business of running this city, and I believe we need this 2% to make that
All right,
better.
Deputy Mayor Sherlock, anything to add?
Thank you. I just want to make it clear that, I mean, I agree with what Councilmember Volsenior said, especially about how the city's expenses are also going up, just like all of ours, in every household. And this doesn't even come close to accounting for that. This type of increase is not something that all of a sudden the city of Newcastle is deciding to do just this year. This is part of, I would say, pretty much every local government budget in the state of Washington, preliminary budget. It is, this is part of what you do. Because it's a very small increase that any local government in the state of Washington is allowed to take. And it's important to, you want to talk about balancing a budget, every little bit helps. Well, this is part of that. It's part of that equation. And for me, when I hear other people talk about on this council reducing expenditures, that means reducing services potentially for our citizens. And I take that very seriously, because the city of Newcastle really does not, we offer services that we are mandated to, but on top of that, there's really not a lot more that we offer. And so it's a big red flag for me if there's any reduction in services, because that could mean that we are potentially out of compliance with the state law. And I feel like it's our job as council members to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I feel like this is part of every budget. It's not new. It helps balance the budget eventually in the end, and that's why I'm supporting it.
Okay. I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All right. The motion on the floor is to adopt ordinance 2022-648, setting the ad valorem property tax for the 2023 fiscal year as presented. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed? Councilmember Lakota? Okay, thank you. All right, motion carries 4-3 with council members Clark, Griffin, and Lakota dissenting. Moving on, item number 9.2. This is another public hearing opportunity on the 2023 final operating and capital budget. First, Director Palmer, do you have a presentation or anything you'd like to open with?
No, one of the big advantages of our budget is the public disclosure piece. It is electronic now. It's available to everybody. It has a lot more information to the public than ever before. And so with that, I just outlined the fact that the revenue is at 22.5 million, the expenditures are at 23.9, and appropriations are larger than the revenue for a couple reasons. One is what we just been talking about on the general operating. Inflation is a big factor in that. The second one is we have a lot of capital needs driving the expenditures as well. So with that, I'll turn it over for public comment.
Thank you. City Clerk White, I need clarification.
Did you want to open the public hearing now,
Yeah,
Madam
but I
Mayor?
just need clarification on something before I do that.
Yes, ma'am.
So I have conflicting information here. On the agenda, it reads questions are following the presenter and then the public testimony. But in the notes, it's public testimony, then questions.
Okay, yeah, so apologies for that discrepancy.
I just,
The point of the notes that you have is to open the public hearing so that the hearing would include the presentation and questions and testimony and debate.
Okay.
However, we can certainly open that public hearing at any point before you take the testimony That was just based on a best practice. The difference between those things, that's just a difference in when they were drafted.
Okay.
So, yes, by all means, you should find out if council has questions before you take your public testimony, but it's entirely up to you.
Okay. All right, so I'll go ahead and open the public hearing to include the questions. I'll take the questions from council prior to turning it over for public testimony. The floor will be open for public testimony following the questions. So with that, are there any questions for Director Palmer from the council? Seeing none, I will go ahead and ask for public testimony. Do I have a sign-up sheet?
So
Okay.
everyone who was on the sign-up sheet has left, but we may
Okay.
have people in Zoom who wish to testify during this.
Okay, go ahead, Director Bronze.
Yes, Tam Kameen, you're being promoted to a panelist to provide your public comment.
Unmute. Okay, am I good?
Yes, we
Okay.
can hear you. Thank you.
I'm Tamara Kameen from Olympus, and I'm here to speak on the budget. And as far as I'm concerned, there is one key number to track in the budget, and that is the net revenue minus expenses for the general fund. And I believe by looking at the ClearGov package, it is still $946,000 underwater. And the council's been working for a couple, if that's not correct, then I'm not sure where we get good information for the public hearing. However, over the last couple months, the council has been going through the budget, and basically they have made very little progress or made very little difference in that number of being underwater in the general fund. That feels to me like the council is not taking that deficit seriously. I sent an email to all of the council, and I gave them some ideas on cost reduction and reminded them of the revenue minus expenditures, which we need to focus on. And once again, as we're talking about property tax, I see the focus of the council being strictly on revenue, and they're neglecting the cost reduction. I believe there are cost reduction areas that can be pursued, such as reviewing headcount in terms of contractors versus people that we've hired over the last couple of years as permanent employees. Also, we could have percent reductions in the different departments, and you could allow the staff to come up with their own numbers and items to reduce from a cost standpoint. Another item is that I keep hearing that we never really spend all of the budget that we put in the budget. And that, in my mind, is bad budgeting. What you want to do is you want to be as close to accurate as you can be. Some things will be a little high, some things will be a little low, but you don't want to be under every single number so that it looks like you have a lot of fat in your budget. And there's a big difference between budgeting 950,000 underwater or say 700,000 underwater. You are, for each person spending money for the citizen, is forced to be creative in how they use that money. When we always have fat and we're going to underspend, that is not good discipline, and it'll not engender people to be more creative and less easy on spending. So I would certainly encourage everyone to focus on this council with discipline and structure, as a previous person said. And also, I think we need to try harder as a council to show the effort that we are trying to live within our means, which means that we have revenues and expenditures in the general fund that are much closer than $950,000 underwater. And I would really like to see that focus on cost reduction and opportunities and creativity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other virtual comment, Director Bronze? Okay, thank you. Moving on to council comments and discussion. Any comments? Seeing none. Oh, Councilmember Clark, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Newing. So I will address the first point that Speaker Kameen mentioned. Since the last budget retreat, which was a short time ago, I went over the budget line item by line item, and I sent an extensive list of recommendations or questions to the city manager, who then replied to all of us. And I'm sorry I can't find that email in front of me, but there was, not significant, but there was a number of cuts that are possible that would save us money. So to let the public know, we are, and specifically the last caller, we have been looking, at least I have anyway, and there are things that we can look at as a group the next time we meet that have some relevance to being cut that aren't necessarily needed. So I want to make that clear that yes, there has been some action taken, although maybe not to the public satisfaction. Thank you.
All right, any further? Councilmember Lakota?
I have a question for Director Palmer. When can we see the updated number? Because last time in the budget retreat, the deficit was 923,000 some change. And ClearGov is still showing 946. And after today's email, Monday's email, there'll be more changes. So when can the citizens see an updated number?
So I made that correction yesterday, and so that should show the $920,000 deficit on that. If you look at the general fund in ClearGov, it should show the 920. And I couldn't make it last week. I was too tied up, so made that on Monday.
You said that she's still seeing 946.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
yeah, I probably was looking at the previous documents. I'll take a look at that. There is a feature where I need to look at that, because if you don't hit the save button, maybe it didn't go through the change. I'll have to look at that, but it should show 920.
Deputy Mayor Sherlock.
Thank you. Also, I've had issues in the past, just to speak to this, that when clearing the cache or whatever that's called, sometimes I've had issues with that with the budget book, where when I did that, then like the new stuff came on. So I don't know if that's something that we can recommend for people.
Right. So I know that if you let's say you were in it on Monday, and I made a change on Monday, which is the day that I did that, which was yesterday, and you don't get out of the budget and back into it, it's not going to show the change. And I don't know what time I made that change, but it was, I just don't remember.
Okay.
I had something else.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I had it and I lost it. I wanted to speak to this idea of the budget having like extra money in the budget, but then we always come in under budget, and people not liking that. I was emailing actually with Lynn Troutman about this also, and so I wanted to read what I sent to him about about this. So in government, once a budget is adopted by an ordinance, it takes a supermajority, and in Newcastle, that means 5 votes of the city council or more, to reduce any spending. Okay, so the reasoning there is that if you are reducing spending, you're likely reducing services. So that's why a supermajority is needed to make that change. And so this is state law. Okay, this isn't like something that the Newcastle Council has decided. Government budgets are not the same as corporate budgets. The idea of use it or lose it for departments is it's just not the mentality of government staff. Our staff have consistently come in under budget every year, and that does not mean that their budgets are then reduced. So for me, why I'm okay with that kind of padding being in there is really, it's in case of emergency, but also for efficiency. We also talk a lot, I hear a lot of people talking about efficiency. And if there is an emergency, the staff then has the ability to spend that when it happens in the most efficient way and not having to wait for council to meet again and then vote on a budget amendment. So that's why I support that. And I just wanted to put that on record.
Okay. All right. If there are no further council member comments, the time is 8:46, and the public hearing is now closed. Are there any motions by the council members? All right. Okay, there is no action tonight on that. I'm sorry, I was reading a note here that was some key guidelines for me. All right, we have no unfinished business. Moving on to item number 11.1, adoption of ordinance 2022-647, amending the 2022 budget by providing an adjustment by fund in summary form for pandemic relief consideration. Director Palmer, tonight is your night. Director Bronze is probably over there getting jealous.
Usually I'm listening to him. So this budget amendment is to accommodate a few areas. One is a grant that we received for from King County to help assist restaurants. And so one of the comments I've seen is that we've increased the resolution that was passed by City Council, and we only did so by the grant amount. So I wanted to make that a point of clarification. And so the cumulative reserve fund, rather than being 650, is actually 675. And that's the reason for that, is to accommodate the $25,000 grant. The second piece of this budget bill is to cover the transportation capital projects, and so that's a piece of it. And the council actually heard that at the last council meeting when Jeff went over that with in his report. And then lastly, the other part is the facilities fund, or the equipment rental fund. Inflation has impacted that just like it has everybody else's budgets as well, with repair bills and with fuel. And that's the reason for the $40,000 increase that we're asking in the IRF fund. And that would summarize four, counting the grant, four things that are in this agenda bill. And so the budget amendment has been previously changed on 3 other occasions, and this is the 4th amendment for the year. And so I've shown that change in the ordinance so that the public and the council can see that as they weigh in on this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Palmer. Any questions for Director Palmer? Councilmember Villasenor, go ahead, please.
Thanks. Maybe not directly, maybe Director Palmer and Director Bronze can tag team on this, but can we get a high-level overview of the May Creek project and some of the additional expenses there?
So the budget, the number that was in, I don't have that stuff in front of me, but the budget that was, the figure that was in the 2022 adopted budget was too low. It should have been 1.5 million. It was like 1.1 or 1.2. We had an updated cost estimate that came in just right after we had the updated budget. So it should have been 1.5 is what we would have put in. And then the bid amount was 2 million. So that's where the inflation was, is that it's 500,000, not $1 million, as a public commenter had indicated.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilmember Lakota, go ahead, please.
Dr. Palmer, I'm trying to understand the table, if you can show the table. So you're saying you're transferring 1,080,000 from the REIT into the transportation, right?
Yes, I am. And so it doesn't require a budget amendment for the refund because I'm redirecting it. The reason I commented in the agenda bill is for disclosure purposes to let the council know that I'm redirecting the money that would have went to the Parks Capital for Lake Bourne and instead move that money to the refund or to the Transportation Capital Fund.
Yeah, no,
So-
that's not a problem.
Oh,
I'm just trying to look into this table that you have in the exhibit.
look into the which?
The table, the 22
Oh, yeah, okay.
budget amendment table in the, what do you call this? In the ordinance number 2022-647.
Okay.
Page
67?
Page 3. The budget amendment table that you have in here. So I'm just trying to understand this table. So in the cumulative, where does it show that the money is getting transferred from the reserve, from REIT into the transportation?
So the REIT fund already has an appropriation in it. It's part of the $3 million, okay? It's already there.
Okay.
And so I don't need to, all I'm doing is changing the direction of it. But unfortunately, in transportation, it doesn't have the revenue receiving it. And that's why the $1,080,000 is there. So $1,080,000 is coming from REIT into transportation, and transportation didn't acknowledge that to begin with because I'm redirecting it. So in the refund, so the thing about, I need to explain fund accounting, okay? So fund accounting, there's 10 funds, and each of those have they're self-balancing revenues, expenditures, and balance sheet. The refund is already whole, okay? It already had an appropriation level. So I didn't need to change that. I only needed to change what the transportation fund, which is also getting more money that was unanticipated, which is the retransfer. So rather than move $1,080,000 to Parks Capital, which we're not doing Lake Bourne project anyway, I just changed the direction of it to be Transportation Capital, and that's the intent. Does that make more sense?
Okay.
Yeah, so it won't show a REIT transfer because REIT's expenditures aren't changing. It's only showing the money going into the transportation and then the transportation expenditure.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay.
Any further questions? Any motions? Councilmember Charbonneau, go ahead, please.
I move adoption of ordinance 2022-647, amending the 2022 budget, providing an adjustment by fund in summary form as presented.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved by Councilmember Charbonneau, seconded by Councilmember Villaseñor to adopt ordinance 2022-647, amending the 2022 budget, providing an adjustment by fund in summary form as presented. Councilmember Charbonneau, would you like to speak to your motion?
I have an amendment.
Councilmember Villaseñor, go ahead with an amendment and please pass it down.
Yeah.
No, oh, I'm so
She's asking
sorry.
to pass it down.
It's been a tough night, I think. What you guys do, swap seats on me again? Go ahead.
I move to remove 650,000 and not transfer it to the cumulative reserve fund.
I have a
Second.
point of order. Can we do that? I mean, respect. Okay, I just wanted,
Even though it's approved by resolution,
yeah,
they can amend.
They can still-
They can amend the ordinance.
okay, all right. All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Lakota, seconded by Councilmember Clark to remove 650,000 from the transfer to the cumulative reserve fund. Councilmember Lakota, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yeah, not to transfer it to cumulative reserve fund. So time and again, today we've been hearing about how police and fire costs are going up. How we need money for public safety. So the 650,000, we want to save it for public safety, for the rising costs of police and fire, and this will help us, for multiple years. So, thank you.
Councilmember Clark, anything to add?
Thank you, Mayor Nguyen. So the 650,000, and we've talked about this at previous council meetings, 400,000 for business and 250,000 for economic relief. And I still don't see any plan on how to spend this money, right? And so we approve it, we move it, this is my main objection, right? We don't have a plan for this money. It's just like a giveaway as far as I'm concerned, right? And I know somebody's going to say, maybe somebody excitable is going to say, Clark, Lakota, and Griffin hate businesses, right? I'm so sick and tired of that, right? We are looking for fiscal responsibility, which is not hating businesses, right? So get that straight, please. And I just want to see what this money is going to be used for, and I have yet to see that. So I don't see that we need to transfer this until we know what it's going to be used for. We have no idea. Who's going to decide how to use it? How much is going to go where? And that sort of thing. So, I'm not satisfied with this money being moved until we know what we're going to use it for. Thank you.
Councilmember Charbonneau, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I moved forward this ordinance because I believe it's largely procedural, looking at the idea of moving money in a way where we can accept the grant that we would like and move forward like that. The $650,000 has been discussed extensively, and it's frankly very obstructionist of my colleague to try to backdoor and remove that money after it was discussed extensively with the consultants who worked on it, with the business owners that came here and listened to us and gave us testimony as you worked on it. And I don't appreciate the backdooring of this. It's simply...
Point of order.
State your point.
I appreciate my colleagues' overzealous support of this motion, but I do not need to be singled out. I am doing something perfectly acceptable. I'm making a motion, and I spoke to my motion. I do not need to be personally attacked for making my motion. I'm sorry that my colleague doesn't like it, but that's the way it is.
I'm sorry, I'm going to deny the point because I do not recall Councilmember Charbonneau calling anybody out by name. What I'd like to do is ask Director Hoffman to speak to this. I know he's working on this project. So Director, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mark Hoffman, Community Development Director. The resolution was passed on October 4th. It includes a work plan and these funds. That resolution number is 2022-910. It includes that work plan. In the work plan, it talks about leveraging this money to benefit small businesses in Newcastle by joining another effort. Since this resolution was passed, we've found that Working Washington 5 closed September 30th, and there is no Working Washington 6 or other program with which to leverage this money with. So internally with the city manager, we are coming up with an internal distribution plan, and we're hoping to give you an update on that on the 15th of November as part of the city manager report.
Thank you, Director Hoffman. All right, with that, there is an amendment to the main motion on the floor to remove $650,000 and not transfer it to the cumulative reserve fund. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion fails 3-4 with council members Clark, Lakota, and Griffin voting in the affirmative. The main motion on the floor now is, let me get back there, to adopt ordinance 2022-647, amending the 2022 budget, providing an adjustment by fund in summary form as presented. All in favor of the main motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-3 with council members Clark, Lakota, and Griffin dissenting. All right. Additional public comment. Do we have any members of the audience who would like to speak for public comment? Mr. Troutman, go ahead, please. Thank you.
There we go, magic. Where do I start? I'm just flabbergasted that, I mean, you guys seem to be having trouble with getting this budget taken care of, and yet you seem more interested in a 3-minute limit for people talking when they have reasonable and innovative ideas on things that you might consider to help you with the budget. We had a new guy here. I just met him tonight, and obviously he's got some business acumen. He retired at 28. God, I wish I could have done that. And he came up at the minute that the 3-minute limit hit. He started talking about these opportunities with gift cards that the businesses could get. Sounded like a lot more money than the money that the city's going to give. And you know, Tam Kameen has ideas. Miss Simpson had a lot of ideas, and the council just seems to just barge ahead and do what they want and not consider what the city wants. This 3-minute limit is just, I wish we had 10, 15 people out here, and the time constraint was really critical, and you know, we had to keep it to 3 minutes. But my goodness, it's not like we've got, I'm sad to say, we don't have, you know, that many people talking to where you couldn't just, you know, bear with some people, especially creative people. If I was you guys, I'd be on the horn tomorrow calling that Steve Gula guy, talking to Tam Kameen and paying attention instead of just 4 to 3, we're passing the property tax, we've got our mind made up. We don't care what Carol Simpson said. She had a good idea. Wait and do everything next year. She presented numbers to you, right over your head. So, I mean, I rarely go away from these meetings feeling real good about things. I don't know what else to say here. I can't even read my own handwriting. Chris, you said we're all in the same boat here, that, you know, you feel the same pinch as a citizen, and the city has expenses, their energy costs go up, and so we're all in the same boat. Well, not exactly. The city's boat has a lifeline. It's called the citizens. The citizens, when your costs go up as a city, the citizens are there to bail them out. As a citizen, your costs go up, you've got to come up and scramble for some way to make extra costs. You know, you got to go out less, you got to not take that vacation, drive the same old car for a year, something like that. You can't just, you know, go to the citizens and say, hey, cough up another 1 or 2%, cough up a utility tax. So you're comparing apples and oranges there, and takes the plight of kind of ignores the plight of, you know, the regular guy like me. One more real quick point, please. Now, early on in the meeting, Councilman Griffin was called out, and I'd just like to make my observation. I've always had real good luck with Tom, and when I've presented him with intelligent, you know, reasonable questions, I've always found out that he gave me intelligent, reasonable answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Hi, Carol Simpson once again. So good luck. You're going to have a very full meeting next time. Not only are you going to try balancing the budget, you're going to be talking about how you're spending the ARPA funds. It's going to be a very complicated meeting. I hope you run it well. I hope you're all prepared, because you should have been doing some, as Councilmember Erksleben used to call it, you should have been doing your puts and takes, some of those tonight, get some of the business done tonight. I'm very disappointed that some council members aren't prepared with that. They talk a lot about, here's the beginning fund, here's the ending fund, we know how to balance the budget, but I'm not seeing anything. So when you balance your budget at home, at the end of the month, do you put the balance in your checkbook back in your savings account? At the end of the year, when you have some money left over at the end of the year in your checkbook, do you put that in your savings account, or do you just roll it over into the January? If you roll it over into January, you're taking it from your end fund balance. Just like the city is going to have to take some money from the end fund balance. There's some features in the budget book that are lacking. You don't have any information about what is going to be spent in 2022. Estimate how you're going to finish up the year on the CIP projects, nor do you know what happened in 2021. It's important to know that information so that you can make good judgments on what you're going to do next year, because you don't know if there's any fund balance unspent to roll into next year's projects. If the sidewalk goes into next year, if the bridge, if the park trails go into next year, what didn't you finish spending this year you can roll into next year? That's not in there. Well, I've got to look again. Lastly, about the cemetery, I'm glad that the people were at the cemetery taking a look. But I was concerned that this is a city-owned cemetery. You know how much you bought it for? $10 from the Oddfellows in 2000. You own it. There's RCWs on how to manage and own a cemetery. What are you doing about it? I heard from Gary Campen that Julie wanted just to let the stuff grow wild in the cemetery. I was appalled. No, you got to keep it clean. There's graves there. There's gravestones you want to find. You want to find a grave. You want to honor the people there and be able to find and know their history and find them. Keep it clean. Take good care of it. So lastly, you saw Chief Hoke dressed to the nines with everything looking like he was ready to go out and do business in the community. But he says he's spending his time sitting at his office because he has a lot of paperwork to do. We're the only city, contract city, that doesn't have a civilian assistant. Our previous two police chiefs asked for a civilian assistant so that they could be more involved in the community and also their officers, relieve them of their paperwork so they could be doing more policing. That hasn't been brought up. It's an inexpensive position to add to increase their visibility and ability to be on the streets and be with us in our community.
Thank you. All right, anyone in the virtual, anyone else out in the audience? Anyone in virtual? All right, thank you. I'll close the public comment. Planning calendar, City Manager Pingle, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of things. We do have a busy agenda for the November 15th meeting. I will have an updated legislative agenda for you on Friday, which we plan to put on the November 15th meeting as well. Something that we need to add to the planning calendar is we want to do a 5 to 7 budget workshop on November 15th prior to that regular meeting. So we'll get that added. I think that's all I have.
Okay, and just a note to the council members, that 5 to 7 workshop on November 15, what I would like you to do is come prepared with your list of potential changes you would like to make to the budget. We will not be making motions during that study session. Those will be saved for the live or the regular session at 7. But also, if you could have your amendments written out for me, that would be helpful and save a lot of time while we're on the dais discussing the budget amendments that you'd like to make. Any questions on the plan? Councilmember Clark.
At our budget retreat, we discussed having this meeting on the 8th or the 9th. Now, was that not a possibility for everybody? I kind of had that set because I thought we had kind of tentatively agreed on something like that.
Paul, or actually, Councilmember Charbonneau and I both have a regional meeting that night. I'm sorry, what was the other date?
We talked about the 8th or the 9th, if I have the dates right. It wasn't a Wednesday or Thursday of that week, or was there something, maybe 9th or 10th, or I'm not sure of the dates.
Yeah, so the dates that we talked about, we had council members missing almost immediately from those dates. And then just with trying to get suggestions from a few of you and then researching and getting a response out, we were just going to be tough. We didn't know what that was going to look like or how quickly that was going to happen, and so that's why we kind of looked for the 15.
Any other questions for City Manager Pingle? Okay, seeing none, I will adjourn the meeting.